talking about the feet, talking about the foot and the ankles. So we just having an understanding of how important, just like when I was talking about the shoulder health, how many nerves are integrated at the motor cortex and the sensory cortex for the hands, there's almost just as many for the feet. So looking at a homunculus, so if you Google homunculus, you'll look at this exaggerated character of a representation of our brain. If our body was the same representation as our brain, you'd have this character with very big lips, big tongue, kind of this medium-sized head, gigantic hands, gigantic feet, and a little torso. So it's really important that we take care of the hands and the feet, because hands are what connect us to and allow us to manipulate, but the feet are our foundation for which we move. And if our feet and our foundation is faulty, that's like building a house on sand. A stupid, what is it, in the quote from the Bible, an unwise man built a house on top of sand, so the foundation will be faulty. So knowing that 50% of the joints and bones are in our hands, wrists, and ankles and feet, we need to look after those joints. First, as most of you know, I like to measure stuff. Because if I don't know a baseline, if I don't know how I'm moving, then how do I know I made a change? So I'm going to bring everybody down to the floor, and I'm going to show you some basic, don't worry, I wash my feet, so they're not horrible, but don't be scared of them anyway. We need to see how the toes move. Can they move independently? Does the ankle move? Does it have sufficient ankle plantar flexion, dorsiflexion? Can we use the ankle and the foot statically? So single leg balance is a key thing. And a couple little tests that I'll show you that you can do. They're very simple, they're quick. You can do them with yourself and do them with clients. And you can kind of quickly, associate or look at where some restrictions might be and just apply some simple joint mobilizations, soft tissue restrictions, and then some easy exercises to strengthen the most common weak muscles, such as the intrinsics of the foot or the tibialis posterior, which is synonymous for those overpronated feet, allowing them to collapse, and some Achilles issues. All right, so I'm just going to tilt you here. All right, lost you. So very simple. You can either use a wall, that's an ankle dorsiflexion test, wall test, or you can use a dowel. Basically, take your fist. All right. So it's important that we use our own body measurements, because if I've got somebody with small feet, small hands, and I'm using my fist, well, it's not going to be very accurate to measure against my own body parts. So in traditional Chinese medicine, we use what's called chin or body measurements to measure against the person that we're working on, their body. So get your client to take their fist lengthways like this, place it at the end of the foot, take a dowel or do it up against the wall, make sure it's vertical, and just very easily drive your knee straight towards the dowel. If you get jammed up, or if you're getting restricted, note where you feel tightness. Are you feeling a pinch in the front, or are you feeling excessive stretch in the back? If you're getting a pinch in the front, most likely a joint problem. If you're getting stretch in the back, most likely a soft tissue problem. So this is where you're going to discern, do I need to stretch and do some soft tissue release, or do I need to mobilize? One of the other things I like to look at, make sure I can stay in focus, balance. First thing that I look at for most people. Can they balance? What's their hip and their pelvis doing? Can they lock up the arch? I'll get a little closer. Can they take a short foot position? And what I mean by that is, are they gripping the ground and creating more of an arch with the foot here? Can they do that? I don't know if you can see that very effectively, but all I'm doing is picking up the arch of my foot. Now that short foot position, that's been shown with EMG studies, electromyography studies, is you get 30 to 40% more power from the glutes. So the foot is very integrated with the hip. If you get a faulty foot, you have a faulty hip. If you have a faulty hip, you have a faulty foot. So that's why you have to look after both of them. And when you look after both of those, most knee pain will go away. But that's a different topic for another day. So, can people single leg balance 10 seconds, okay? You can make it more challenging for them by closing their eyes. If they fall over and lose balance, there might be some communication problems from the foot. It might be inner ear or some just overall balance problems. But you can quickly see Is there a lot of play going on with the foot? Is it collapsing? Can they just maintain that static control? For the foot, I like to look at kind of a toe lift test. So I'm gonna make you look at my weird feet, if you can see it. Can you just lift the big toe up off the ground about 45 degrees independently? And then can you lift the toes up? Can you splay the toes? This is just looking at intrinsic strength and mobility of all the digits. Now, a lot of people can't do this. We are supposed to be able to do this. The reason why most of us can't do it is because our feet are trapped in shoes all day. Most of them are too narrow, and they're not allowed to open up and splay and actively grip the earth. So at our facility, everybody trains barefoot to strengthen the foundation. Just like strengthening the hands, the best way to strengthen the feet is take them out of gloves, take them out, so that strengthen the hands, take them out of gloves, take the foot out of a sock, and put it directly in the contact of a hard surface, and let it do what it's supposed to do by starting to grip at the ground. That is how it's designed to be used. If the feet become dead and paralyzed because of disuse or trapped in shoes for a lifetime, then we're not going to have a good stable surface in which to move off of. So throwing orthotics in there is not going to help. It's just going to make the problem worse. If there's a structural deformity, fine orthotics, good. If it gives you better alignment up the kinetic chain. If orthotics are just kind of being thrown at you because, well, you got a little bit of a flat foot, so let's spend $350 on this, it's probably going to make the things worse because it's going to make your foot more dependent on it. So you need to find out, is an orthotic ideal for you, or do you just need to strengthen it? Most of the time, I find people just need to make their feet stronger. Orthotics necessary sometimes for a temporary fix until things get lined up or settled, but again, tangent over. Okay, next thing. So we look at ankle. Plantar flexion, most people don't have a problem with this, but it should be anywhere, research says 60 to 70 degrees, some say 90, depending on how mobile it is. But we want about 30 degrees dorsiflexion, we want about 60 to 70 degrees plantar flexion. Quick test that you can do. Can you sit on your ankles comfortably with your body weight? We're supposed to be able to do this. A lot of people can't because things might be a little bit tight on the front, but rock back and forth and see, and when you can see here, I've just got the ankles tucked right underneath, the toes slightly turned in. So I can rock here. Don't turn the ankles out like this. That's going to crank into the knee. That's not how the tibia is supposed to be internally rotated with the ankles inverted. So allow them to come in naturally like that. So that's a quick test like that. Another test, if you want to look at overall mobility for the toes, tuck your toes under and sit on the toes. You can also use this as a nice stretch. So I can stretch out all the plantar fascia, mobilizing the toes. If you have some joint problems in the big toe, which a lot of people do, it's one of the first joints to get arthritis, then you might be getting jammed up here. You might need to do some local joint mobilizations for that. So very simple, if you've got big toe stiffness, just take the toe and pull it. I'm not stretching it, I'm getting right close. I'll get right up there for you. Okay, so I'm taking the toe and I'm gliding, okay? So I'm not stretching like this, I'm getting right close and I'm literally sliding the joint here. So if I've got some joint restrictions or pinchiness in that big toe there, you can do some glides. You can do that for pretty much any of the joints there. Okay. Now, we're gonna get into some soft tissue work. So let's say that I can't pick up my big toe and I also can't lift it up with assistance. Let's say it's tight. We can assume that the plantar fascia is tight, especially if we got plantar fasciitis. Most of the plantar fasciitis that I see, it's a hypermobile foot. So energy is going to the area of least resistance. So most of my plantar fascial people or problems, it's not because of a tight foot. It's because of a weak foot and a hypermobile soft tissue. But what you'll want to do is you want to get in, grab my lacrosse ball, go poking around, right? Take a golf ball and you can sit and massage the foot. If you find some massive trigger points there, fine, sit on it, okay? Lift the toes, okay? Make it active. So you're doing some pin and move. So pin the tissue, move it on top. You can also do some massage for it. That'll loosen up the fascia. But I'm more about, I like to pin on tissue and then strengthen the opposite side. Okay? Saves me time. If you don't find that there's some huge trigger points in there, get a lacrosse ball, start digging in that calf. Okay? I'll bring it back here a little bit so everyone can see. So a lot of the muscles of the feet and the ankle, they sit deep in the calf muscle here. So go digging around. Again, if you've got a collapsed arch, you've got kind of this medial inside ankle pain, a lot of times it's that tibialis posterior. So my long distance runners, if you're kind of getting these inside shin splints, go poking around on that tib posterior, deep in the calf. You're gonna find some nasty, nasty little trigger points in there. So stick the ball, there's a good one, and move that ankle up and down so you're strengthening the ankle dorsiflexors. Cool? All right, so work it all the way down, even up into high in the back of the knee. And you can get in there. Okay, now, what if, so that's gonna work really well if we've got some tightness, if that ankle dorsiflexion test told us that we have some tightness in here. You can also do some stick and stretch. So I can take it into that stretch. If you've got one of those massage sticks, you can use a dowel, a rolling pin. You can put some stretch on and do some rolling while you're on stretch. This works really, really nice. Lateral calf. Okay, see if you can find a little new range of motion there. And just work 30, 40 swipes. If you find a trigger point, it might take 30, 40 swipes at this to loosen it off. So work your way down and around. And if you're probing through tissues and there's no tender points or it's pretty soft, it's not a problem. So go look someplace else. There might be some other restrictions. Cool. Now, once we've got some new length in there, we want to strengthen it, okay? Lengthen and strengthen, save some time. So I've released that left calf there. I've got some new mobility. Check, that looks pretty good. But in order for my nervous system to hang on to this, I have to know that maybe that soft tissue, those trigger points that I had were protecting something. Maybe it was just some weakness. If I don't add some strength into that, it will most likely come back. So a nice little lengthen and strengthen exercise are these kind of kickstand calf raises. So I'm gonna load up whatever body weight I can tolerate and get nice and high onto the toes. I'm also gonna stretch the toes here so I can gauge how much tension I want to put into that calf and that new range of motion. Okay. Right, and then I can check. I can get a little bit more lean in there, put a little bit more in stretch, and then load up that stretch. Cool. High reps. I like high reps for this stuff. The high repetitions will 15, 20, 25, even higher. It'll just increase blood flow into the tendons and connective tissue. So you're gonna get some good endurance because we use the calves and the feet all day. Once we've worked in kind of the more that soleus, which is works more with the bent knee, work on some balance. So calf raises, when we're doing them on the machine at the gym, it's going to work the big bulk calf muscle, so the gastrocsoleus, the larger one. When we don't hang on to an external support, the stabilizers of the feet and the ankles have to work harder. And we always want them to outlast the main power muscles, because if they fatigue, that's when we get into a lot of trouble where we might start to overuse the calf or the Achilles to be stabilizers, and they don't do a very good job. Then all of a sudden we got, Achilles tendonitis, tib posterior tendonitis, plantar fasciitis. We start getting into all these kind of tissue micro damage conditions because the stabilizers and the support muscles of the foot and the ankle failed us. All right. So when you're doing calf raises, do them on a stair. 2x6 works nicely. Do them on the bottom step, please, not on the top step, because there's a big balance component with this. So it's going to be a little tricky because I'm on the carpet, but just by standing nice and tall, I can control the amount of stretch I come down and all the way up on the toes. So I'll show you on the front what I'm doing. And I'm coming up, but I'm slightly inverting at the top. When I slightly invert, it's picking up the arches and facilitating that tibialis posterior a little bit more effectively, okay? So I'll sit here and do 50 reps, okay? Just to get that nice burn. I let